Hello everyone. We're continuing this week with our built-in bookshelves, and like last week's video, we begin in the workshop by cutting up a stack of MDF down to size with a track saw. These shelves are quite wide but shallow from front to back, with 3 fixed shelves separated by staggered uprights. Now, while I was cutting the stock, I kept an offcut that's 900mm long, and that's exactly the same height as the shelf carcass, and I'm marking it up and setting it to one side as it'll come in handy later. So with all the components at hand, at top and bottom, left and right sides, 3 shelves and 5 uprights, we can start cutting the mortises. And while I'm using a domino mortiser for this, dowels or biscuits will work just as well. As with last week's shelves, we cut a wide mortise on the inside faces of the left and right sides. And narrow mortises into the ends of the top and bottom sections. With everything cut and jointed, these pieces can be primed and once dry, denibbed with a light sanding, then painted. Again, I'm using a water-based acrylic with an eggshell finish, and it'll take a couple of coats of paint to give a decent coverage with a foam roller. Once again, denibbing with a light sanding between coats. And don't forget, we need to do both sides of the faces that show. Now I've cheated a little bit here and not shown the actual construction of the carcass, partly because it's a straightforward glued and screwed with dominoes for alignment, and if you've seen last week's video then it covers the process in more detail, and partly because it's actually quite a large piece and I struggled to show enough of it to make much sense in my little workshop. Anyway, I've put a clean board down over the bench and I'm using the shelf uprights to gauge where the next shelf up should be. They've already been measured and cut, so why make work for ourselves? With a dab of glue on the shelf ends and everything in position, the shelf can be screwed in place straight through the sides. And when we move the dividers inboard, we can be sure that they'll be a nice snug fit. Now, it's important that the uprights are consistently positioned, so to help fix them in place I've made a couple of guides from some scrap, and this really does help keep everything square, front to back and top to bottom, while you fix them home. And we simply repeat the process on the right, and all the way up as we need to. Though as the next shelf is the only one with a single central divider, it's just as easy to measure this out as it's a one-off. I do use the guides again though, just to keep everything square, and these are simply held in place with a couple of spring clamps. Now you'll have noticed that because the shelves are quite closely spaced here, there isn't room to get a nail gun in there, and even the drill driver needs an angled head to work comfortably. Now I'm using tongue-tight screws to fix this in place, and these are actually designed to be used when fixing down floorboards. You can literally drive the screw through the tongue of a tongue and groove board, hence the name. But I'm using them here simply because they have a very small head. It leaves a discrete hole that's easily filled, which is very handy when you need to put a screw through a face that's visible in the finished product. And finally, the top shelf is a straight repeat of the bottom. And using our guides helps maintain a consistent spacing for a clean, professional looking finish. So at this stage of the build, all the screw holes get a quick squeeze of filler, followed by a rub over with some sandpaper, then a dab of paint just to tidy things up. When everything's touch dry, we can carefully, as the paint's still soft, flip the shelf over onto its face and attach the back. As before, the 6mm or 1/4 inch painted MDF back is simply planted on, as the back edges of these fitted shelves will never be seen. But before we fix it down, with the back in place at the top and bottom, but off slightly to one side, we mark the centres of the 3 middle shelves on both the left and right hand sides of the back. Now we can move the back so that it's all square and centred up again, and fix it down with narrow crown staples all around the edge of the carcass. When that's done, we take a straight edge and draw a pencil line joining the edge marks we just made at the left and right. And this now represents the centre line of the shelves underneath. And we can pop in a few extra staples along these lines and be pretty sure that they won't completely miss the shelves and come poking through the back, as at this stage of the game that would be disappointing. Don't ask me how I know that. With the back all secured, we can fix on some steel corner plates, and as before, these are drilled and screwed straight through the back and directly into the carcass. When it comes to the installation, we drill through these from the front to secure the shelves to the wall, so it's worth taking the time to get a very firm fixing on them. And last of all, we can flip the shelves back over and do a quick touch-up of any of the paintwork that needs it. And once again, I'm going to end the video there for today. I know we're running a little bit long, and apologies for that. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I look forward to seeing you here again soon. New videos up every Friday. Certainly the next episode, the installation of these shelves, will be up this coming Friday. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. It takes 2 seconds and it costs you nothing. And as ever, share the video freely and give it a thumbs up if you like it. Thanks ever so much, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.